Black Power, y'all. Black Power, Gigi. Good morning, Black Power, Black Power. Come on into the room. Share in all your groups, share on all your pages. I hope y'all are as excited as I am to discuss this political education we're going to be going over this morning. Really heavy chapters. We're finishing up chapter 26. And we're going to go through the whole thing of chapter 27. After this, we'll only have 2 more weeks for this book. It's been a long read, but it's been a good read. So I'm really excited to get into this today. Make sure that you share in all of your groups. Share on all of your social media pages and platforms. Hashtag share when you shared it. And come on into the room so we can get started discussing Revolutionary Suicide by Huey Newton. It's just going to be me today because my comrade had a plantation obligation, but we're going to make it work. And me and Comrade Diaz should be back together hopefully this time next week. So share it on all your social media pages. Hashtag share when you shared it. Share it on all platforms. Share it in all your groups. Yeah. I don't know about y'all, but I'm a little chilled this morning, so I might be wrapping this sweatshirt around me just to not be shivering so much while I'm live. All right, hold on a second, y'all. I'm going to get my laptop going so I can keep up with your comments while we're going through the discussion. So I'm going to do that, and then we can go ahead and get started. Let's see what we got here. Here we go. Okay. Hold on a second, y'all. Just trying to make sure I can go through your comments. I want to be able to do that while we're going through the discussion and not have to worry about tipping my phone over. So give me just a second to try to pull up the video, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Like 30 more seconds, y'all, and then we will get started. Okay. I think I got it. So I should be able to see your comments. All right, y'all. Good morning, Black Power. Thank you for joining me this morning. Make sure you shared it if you haven't already. Black Power DP. Thank y'all for coming in with me. And I'm looking forward to discussing all this with you guys. So, Black Power DP, Black Power Chakande. Thank you for sharing, Chakande. Black Power Gigi, thank you for sharing. All right, y'all. So, a couple things before we dive in. I wanted to make sure that you guys knew that we have some really good things happening in Black Hammer. We are doing a couple of food drives this upcoming month. One is going to be in the Wilmington, Delaware area. So if you're able to donate to that so that we can make that food drive a success, you should. You can donate at BH Food Drive, all together on CashApp to help us raise funds for that. So I want to make sure you guys are aware of that. We're also doing a food drive in the Atlanta area on November the 30th. That's going to be the Saturday that follows the Thanksgiving holiday. So if you want to donate to that, I will figure out where's the best place for you to donate, but you can always donate at blackhammer.org. On the Cash App, you can do blackhammer.org all together, or you can go on any of the platforms that you can donate here for the book club and donate there. But we will get that clarified as to where you need to donate for the food drive we're having in Atlanta. But the Wilmington, Delaware food drive, please donate there. We're doing really good things for the community. So donate so we can make this a reality. So November 17th is the food drive that will be taking place in the Wilmington, Delaware area. November 30th will be the food drive we're doing in the Atlanta area. So yeah, hook us up so we can hook up the community. Also, if you want to donate on behalf of the book club, we are at BHBookclub on Cash App. You can also you can also donate on any of the platforms. It should be posted in the comment section, pinned in the comment section, but that is www.gofundme.com/blackhammer.org. You can also donate directly on the website at www.blackhammer.org/donate. And then you can also donate on the at BH Book Club, and you can donate there. So donate on any of those platforms to make this a reality, to keep this going, because to get this political education takes resources to do that. So we appreciate you giving us the support. And yeah, with that, we will go ahead and get started. So share if you haven't already, #share when you shared it. And we're going to be finishing up chapter 26 today. Some things that we didn't get to last week that I really thought it was important for us to discuss is the witness Del Ross, and this is coming from pages 236 and 237, and we'll go ahead and talk about that. Also, make sure that you put your hashtag what's on your bookshelf. Anything that we can add to our reading list that we want to try to read with you guys, discuss with you guys, as far as how it can benefit the African colonized community, we're always open to that. So if you got a hashtag what's on your bookshelf, drop it in the comment section. Let us know what you're reading, and if it's something that's revolutionary that we could really benefit from reading, we'll add it to our reading list, and yeah, we'll get it out there. So so yeah, we had not yet gotten to the witness Del Ross. Del Ross was the guy that supposedly Huey Newton had kidnapped on the night that he was shot, and the pig was shot and killed. Del Ross supposedly had been kidnapped by Huey, taken somewhere, and forced to drive him somewhere for a purpose of committing the crime. The reason why I wanted to make sure we got a chance to discuss Del Ross was because of his testimony and what that looked like and how it related to another witness that we'll see later on in this testimony. So Del Ross was asked what he saw on the morning of October the 28th, 1967, and he did not want to incriminate himself, and so they got upset at first because they knew that it could hurt their case. The prosecution knew it could hurt their case if you don't have this key star witness to say, oh, I was kidnapped and I was taken here and stuff like that. So Del Ross, though, kept saying that he didn't remember, and I think he kept invoking his Fifth Amendment right not to self-incriminate. And anyways, the prosecution saw what happened, and they allowed him to say he did not remember what he saw, and as a result, they allowed to coach his testimony through so it could support what they wanted the jury to think happened. And that was allowed. So that's going to be really relevant in comparison to what we see with the other witness that the prosecution wanted to bring forward, Gene McKinney, and that was the African that was riding with Huey Newton in the car at the time they were pulled over when all of this went down. So Yeah, so that happened. Del Ross's testimony was allowed to, basically, he was allowed to say he didn't remember what happened. He didn't want to self-incriminate, you know, and that went through. They did drop the kidnapping charge due to lack of evidence, so that didn't actually help them. But that was one of their biggest witnesses that they had that could help the prosecution. So in this regard, it actually helped Huey's case in that it was such a weak testimony. Let's see. I took some notes on this because I thought it was kind of important, the comparison of the two. But we were actually going over pages 241 through 260, but since we didn't get a chance to talk about Del Ross, I thought it was important to mention him and his role in what we were seeing. So fast forward back to, we're still going through the testimony. This is a long trial, y'all, a long trial. But there were witnesses that were brought forward that witnessed what that testified as to what they saw. On page 241, there was a black woman, an African woman, who said that she had seen 3 men running away from in the direction of the gas station in the corner of 7th Street and Willow Avenue. And another witness, a young man, told the police that he had seen 2 cars speeding away on north on 7th Street. And Jensen, the prosecutor, never called these people to testify because he wanted to create the impression that Huey was the only one that could have killed Frey. So he didn't want to give any reason. Those people being called forward could have produced a reason to think that somebody else could have been involved, or there could have been somebody else that shot Frey and killed Frey. So they wanted to keep those witnesses out if at all possible. Then, also, this is something else that's important. On page 242, they went through Greer's testimony because there was some sort of mix-up on the written transcript as to what was said by Greer, and they were using that for the benefit of the prosecution. So there was something that Gary, the attorney that's the attorney for Huey, he actually states that there was a transcript error and it needed to be clarified. So on page 242, I highlighted the section that says, the section read, about how old. The answer was, I couldn't say because I only had my lights on. I did get a clear picture, clear view of his face, but because he had his head kind of down facing the headlights on the coach, I couldn't get a good look. And it says over the word did, somebody had written the correct word didn't. So they actually made the correction because Greer was actually saying he didn't get a good look at the person. But throughout the trial, Jensen, knowing that this issue was crucial, he neglected to inform Gary, the jury, and the court that there was a question in the transcript of how clearly Greer had been able to see. Indeed, Jensen's contention was that Greer had gotten a good look and therefore was in a position to identify that person as me. As long as there was the slightest doubt in his mind about whether the word was did or didn't, he had the moral obligation to inform the court and the defense counsel, and it was an absolute matter of conscience that he listened again to the tape to see what the word actually was, and he never bothered. But of course, we know he wasn't interested in justice in this regard, just getting a prosecution. It goes on to say, in this important matter, in all the other dubious issues, the position of the bullet casings, the police tapes, the hiding of Greer, the keeping the important witnesses off the stand, the changing of Greer's original testimony, Lowell Jensen proved less than honorable. It's the prosecutor's job to convict the guilty man, not an innocent one. Well, based on what we know about the court system. But anyway, and in my case, Jensen had many reasons to believe that I was innocent. So that's that section. So if you guys have Black Power Valencia, good to see you. If you guys have a hashtag read that back for the rest of chapter 26, please put it up there because I really like to discuss it. Also, after that, it goes into this letter that Gary receives during the trial, and it's from the KKK, and it's basically a threatening letter. I don't really see the point of reading it because you can imagine what's there. But it is on page 243. It does start out nigger lover, and then it goes into how they're going to basically do some damage if the courts don't rule the way they feel like they should. So this is just an ongoing thing in the American justice system. So Gary does try to get a mistrial granted. Of course, that's denied. Then on pages 244 and 245, there are several people that are called to the stand that have had ongoing, just sporadic encounters with Officer Frey, or Pig Frey. And all these people just have a different recollection of similar events that happened with this pig. It says on page 244, Daniel King, 16, related on the stand how he had met Frey around 4 o'clock one morning in West Oakland, where he was visiting his sister. They had gone out to get something to eat on 7th Street, and there, incredibly enough, had encountered a white man with no pants on. He was with Frey. Frey told King he was violating curfew, and the white man accused him of knowing the girl who had taken his pants. When King denied this, both Frey and the white man called him nigger, pimp, and other dirty words. Frey had held King while the white man hit him, and then put him in the paddy wagon and took him to juvenile hall, where he spent the rest of the night. Frey did not even bother to call King's parents. So then there's several other people here who said they've had similar experiences with this cop. So again, that just, to me, what I took from that is that you have all these supposedly good cops that work around these supposedly horrible cops. I think they're all terrible. But you have these supposedly good cops who see these things, who work among these people, who work among these terrible cops, so to speak, and they still keep their jobs really up until the time that they do something horrible, tragic, where they take somebody's life. Then it's all of a sudden, oh, well, we didn't know that he was this bad, or we've been working with him, we've been training with him. But this is the American criminal justice system. That's what this is to the core. So us seeing any type of officer like Frey, that should be the norm. We should expect that. So yeah, there's a handful of testimonies there from that. Now here's where it gets good, and this is what I wanted to bring up about the comparison of how they interviewed Del Ross, or the testimony from Del Ross, and then when Gene McKinney. So Gene McKinney obviously was the comrade that was riding with Huey the night that he got pulled over and shot at. And so this is at the bottom of page 246. When McKinney took the stand, Gary rose and asked him his first name and when and whether he had been the passenger in the Volkswagen with me at the corner of 7th and Willow on the morning of October 28, 1967. Yes, I was, McKinney answered. His response electrified the courtroom. But those two questions were the only ones he ever answered. When Gary asked, now, Mr. McKinney, at the time and place on that morning at approximately 5 o'clock in the morning, did you by chance or otherwise shoot Officer Frey? McKinney said, I refuse on the grounds it may tend to incriminate me. Jensen was outraged. He jumped to his feet and demanded that Judge Friedman direct the witness to answer the question, inasmuch he had already started to testify, said Jensen. So, just so you know, so McKinney is refusing just like Del Ross did. He said he did not want to answer in the event that it might incriminate him. So further down, it goes into the strategy and why that was used. At the bottom of page 247, but Gary and Harold Perry were also using another brilliant strategy, and Jensen understood immediately what was involved. The prosecution believed that McKinney was inviting Judge Friedman to grant him immunity in his testimony, the same immunity that had been given to Del Ross whereby nothing he said could be used against him. Then, with his protection, he could say that he had killed Frey and shot at Haynes, and that he had escaped with me. Because no evidence had been submitted during the trial to prove otherwise, he could not have been convicted of perjury, thus having absolved me of the crime and having freed himself of any danger of prosecution. Since his testimony could not be used against him, both of us could have walked out of the courtroom at liberty. But Jensen and Freeman, believing this to be the strategy, were having none of it, and after questioning McKinney carefully to make sure he realized he was liable for contempt, Judge Freeman ordered him immediately sent to jail for refusing to testify. He later sentenced him to 6 months, but the California Superior Court reversed the decision, stating that McKinney had acted in his constitutional right after spending a few weeks in the county jail. McKinney was released on bail. As I said, he is a courageous man. So yeah, he was very courageous in doing that, but this was a demonstration to show the courts and to show the public that the way that the courts were using the other testimony, and the fact that they were willing to give that person immunity for his testimony, but then the other person for the defense, it wasn't set up to be a fair trial to begin with. So, and we know that. So, with all that being said, the rest of chapter 26 is basically it goes through the rest of the trial. Huey is eventually gives his testimony as to what happened. He uses that as a way of basically still bucking the system, showing his discontent for the system. He's not, again, Huey's purpose in doing this and the way that he's carrying out the trial, his testimony, is not so that he can get off or so that he can be proven innocent. It is to mobilize the people. It is to show his discontent with the system itself. He's not interested in what's in the best interest for him as much as he is in what's in the best interest for the community, and how to mobilize the community, agitate the community so that they actually want to dismantle this system in the first place. On page 250, while he's on testimony, I believe it is. Let me make sure. Yes. He said, on one occasion I saw an opportunity to show my contempt for the judge, and I took it. I was describing how immigrant groups had been subjected to oppression and discrimination when they first arrived in this country, but that after they began to make economic gains, some of them had joined their oppressors, and when the oppressors continued to discriminate against the immigrants' own people. I use as an example Jews who joined the Elks Club, even though they know that this organization is racist and anti-Semitic. Judge Friedman had been the first Jew admitted to the Elks Club in Oakland, a fact that had been given a great deal of publicity. The Elks wanted it believed that they were no longer anti-Semitic, but everybody knew better. Everybody knew better. Another time, talking about contemporary racism in American society, I deliberately used the Mormon Church is one of the most blatant proponents of ethnic discrimination. Knowing that Jensen was a Mormon, I looked at him when I said this. Instead, at the jury, he gave me a smirk, and I kept right on looking at him. He could say nothing in front of the jury lest they learn the truth about him. And so that's kind of how he uses his testimonies, is to show contempt, to buck at the system itself. And we know that Jensen wants Huey to lose his shit on the stand. So his sister actually overheard this, heard Jensen talking about this, saying that he wants to make him lose his temper, basically to cause him to lose control, and then that's going to further make it seem like he's this violent person, this violent offender, and that him shooting this officer was more likely because look how he can't even keep control. So he is cross-examined. He never loses control with Jensen. Jensen wants Huey to lose control, but that doesn't happen. He's asking him if he shoots Haynes, and Huey denies any of it. What gets to I want to make sure that I just talk about the verdict, which was a little surprising. And this is coming from me never having read this book prior to, but they did find Huey guilty of, I think it was voluntary manslaughter. Yeah, it was voluntary manslaughter that he was found guilty for. This is on page 261. He was not found guilty of, let's see, the other charges he was not found guilty of. Not guilty of a felony to wit, assault with a deadly weapon upon a police officer, a violation of section 245B of the Penal Code. He was not found guilty of that. The following verdict with the title of court and cause the same. We, the jury, in the above entitled cause find that the charge of previous conviction as set forth in the indictment is true. So he was found guilty of manslaughter, voluntary manslaughter, and later we'll find, when we're going into, I think it starts, when we go into the penal colony chapter, it's going to go into the difference between involuntary manslaughter and voluntary manslaughter, and like for the reason for the mistrial, or for the granting of a new trial. But he said he was surprised by that. On page 261, manslaughter, not murder, that was a surprise. But Gary and I were unhappy with such an equivocal decision. It meant that the jury believed I had killed Officer Frey, but only after severe provocation and in a state of passion. It was absurd. However, they did not think that I had also shot Officer Haynes, which, it doesn't make any sense. Did the jury think someone else had shot him? And if so, who and how did the two shootings connect? The verdict was a compromise that showed no justice at all. And that's something that he's about to go into, because you remember there was one black juror on the jury, and there was some concern that the community would be angry with that juror for basically selling out and going along with that. And Huey actually analyzes that very well. And he talks about why he felt like this brother Harper, the name of the black juror on the jury, had gone along with that as something he was guilty for, rather than actual first degree murder or fighting, I guess, so that he wasn't found guilty of anything.